When the feds trekked to Las Vegas and banged on Ponzi scammer Matthew Beasley's door, they weren't entirely shocked to see him pull a gun. The surprise came when he pointed the piece at his own head. You'd think a man with nothing left to lose would simply start blasting, but instead, Beasley hesitated. He didn't blow himself away, and no agents got hurt. Instead, he took the gun off himself and made a sweeping motion across the agents at his door. He didn't take particular aim or fire a shot, but the threatening gesture was enough to spur action. Agents opened fire at close range. The low-life lawyer took lead in his chest and shoulders, but refused to go down. The standoff, if it can be called that, continued for 4 hours. Beasley refused to surrender, but did talk with negotiators for a while. Somehow, the bleeding man held his ground until finally a SWAT team got involved. The whole thing didn't go the way just about anybody would have expected, nor did it end as expected. He confessed to everything right on the spot. The raid was reportedly brought on by a tip from Hindenburg Research, a firm specializing in an odd investigating tactic known as short selling. When they got indirectly involved with the scam through a tip from an accountant, founder Nate Anderson made it no secret that he thought something was up. Despite everything Beasley and his people did to make the scam appear legitimate, and it was a heck of a lot, Anderson claimed he saw right through the whole thing. He used some old connections to set up circumstances that would allow him to secretly listen in on the runners of the suspected scam during a private jet flight. After Hindenburg started getting tips from clients about the scam, Anderson talked to some of the tipsters. One of them was linked to Mark Holt, an old classmate of Judd's that runs a jet charter business. The folks who wound up on board the flight were some of the on-the-ground marketers that helped Judd and Beasley sell the scam. In a conversation with the crew, one of them said that buyers thought the deal was so good that it may be a Ponzi scheme. That confirmed Anderson's suspicions and told him all he needed to know. He filed a whistleblower report with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, and before long, the FBI had boots on the ground. Beasley had become a lawyer back in 2016 and had never been in trouble with the law before. This was his first rodeo, so while he was an integral piece of the puzzle, he didn't exactly run the show. That honor went to business owners Jeffrey Judd and Christopher Humphreys, who jointly owned and operated many of the largely illegitimate businesses involved in the scam. The main business involved was J&J Purchasing, which was used as a shell company for a good chunk of the scam. J&J Holdings was also used in operations, mostly for money laundering. The spread of the scam was almost entirely perpetuated by word of mouth, making in-person marketing absolutely vital. The 3 men reportedly targeted affluent folks that they or their marketers had something in common with. Churches, country clubs, and gyms were among the most straightforward hunting grounds. Legal documents in the case named 4 pairs of boots on the ground aside from the 3 scammers and insinuate that there were likely more. Naturally, a number of businessmen that may or may not be operating the way they claim are also involved. Legal documentation names a staggering 22 defendants. Despite the sheer size of the operation, the scam didn't exactly bring in the billions. When it fell apart, about $449 million had been fleeced from victims across the U.S. The setup for the scam was a slow burner. For its 5-year run, almost all the victims probably had no idea they were being strung along. In fact, a little simple math reveals that some of the earliest adopters may have already doubled their initial investments. You're probably familiar with how a standard Ponzi scheme works. The scammer lures people in to invest, promising great returns and low risks. As new investors jump on board, their money funds the promised payouts for the older crop of investors. Rinse and repeat until the money somehow runs short at the bottom of the ladder, be it from a lack of new investors or from the scammers taking too much off the top. The scam is that, but far more complex. This particular scam jumped through a number of hoops to add a layer of legitimacy that fooled thousands of people into parting with their cash. The nationwide reach and very real legal presence of Beasley's law firm made it possible to cast such a wide net. In fact, the scam actively used Beasley's connections to make it sound more legitimate. Beasley, being a lawyer, sat at the center of how the scam worked. Buyers were convinced that they would be funding early payouts for tort winners. In fact, Beasley and his team referenced a slip-and-fall case that they would allegedly be handling. The buyers' returns would come from fees, long-term payments, and interest tied to the case winners getting their funds early. On the surface, it all looked pretty straightforward. Taking a closer look at what the scammers were asking clients to do makes it clear that something was up. For starters, clients are being asked to not only chip in to jump on board, but to reinvest and renew after 90 days. That initial pay-in for most buyers was set at an eye-watering $80,000 minimum. Coincidentally, that's when victims were promised their first payouts with at least 10% returns. That part was done away with in later versions of the contract, as if the scammers figured out that was sus and decided to find another way to get more cash from each victim. The madness doesn't stop there. They also had to wire money into a lawyer-run account, which is normally a big red flag. On top of that, they had to set up an LLC, making a business entity in their name to get their payouts. As a cherry on top, buyers had to commit to making a purchase between Thursday and Sunday, then get the money over on the next Monday or Tuesday. The weird scheduling and all the struggles just to buy in, let alone to get your cash out, made the whole operation seem, at the very least, kind of odd. The only real reason that the scam didn't fall through before it even began was because it mirrors a very real investment strategy. Lawyers that help clients with personal injury and other cases involving client payouts are almost always willing to let outside firms help with payments. If you've ever heard the infamous J.G. Wentworth 877 Cash Now jingle, you've heard of a business that does what these scammers said they were doing. The way it was all working in reality, behind the scenes, can explain a lot of the weirdness. For starters, that lawyer-run trust account, Beasley had direct access to it and was skimming from it to put cash into other accounts for other tasks, and, of course, directly into his and his associates' pockets. This means that a single account is moving massive sums in multiple directions. It's no wonder the scammers wanted to work with large transactions and have significant delays built in. There's no shortage of rich suckers out there, so Beasley and his friends kept the party rolling from 2017 all the way until 2022. They were taking in at least $80,000 per client and paying out only $8,000 to $10,000 per client up to 90 days later. This means that one new investor will fund at least 10 old ones for 90 days. Simple math, but what does it all mean? This scam could have kept going indefinitely without anybody catching on. In terms of Ponzi schemes, it was as close to perfect as you could get. The biggest hang-up, aside from getting caught, was just how much the crew were pocketing. Like any enterprise, the men at the top walked away with the lion's share of the take. The small partners like marketers and cover-up people were paid something, of course. Details on how that played out for them were sparse. The big boy prizes, meanwhile, were shown off in a bit more detail. Beasley and others at or near the top used investors' money for all sorts of creature comforts. Private jets, lavish homes, and rental properties were just the tip of the iceberg. Nice cars were also on the list, including luxury models from Aston Martin, Bentley, Porsche, and more. One of the scammers even nabbed a Rolls-Royce, the poster vehicle for "I have way too much money." As far as criminal charges, the case is still up in the air. The only one to catch any charges so far has been Beasley, and they weren't money-related. His stunt with the gun when the FBI arrived got him charged with assaulting a federal officer. On the civil side, though, things are really heating up. As of this writing, the SEC has filed suit against 6 of the individuals involved, along with all their companies and holdings. The commission is seeking an injunction on any financial activity by the defendants, wants them to repay what they've bilked from investors, and is putting unspecified civil penalties on top. As if things weren't looking bad enough for our scammy 6, many of the investors are coming forward and filing lawsuits of their own. With so many targets to go after, some of the scammers and marketers are catching personal suits and actions against their companies. At the center of it all is Beasley, who's facing a class action lawsuit against him personally. The action was started by 3 jilted investors, ex-cop Paul Maloff and business owners Elizabeth Lewis and Brad Maloff. They charged that Beasley orchestrated the whole thing and was controlling the flow of funds using a Wells Fargo account that was under his personal control. As of this writing, the floodgates are open for anybody who's been burned to jump on board. As of September 2022, the case is ongoing. Criminal charges related to financial misconduct have yet to be filed against anybody involved. Cops did serve search warrants at the homes of the defendants, but aren't ready to release what they've found at the moment. Beasley is being held without bail for his criminal charges. Whether he gets off easy on the criminal charges or not, Beasley is going to have it hard when this all blows over. Nevada's bar chief, Dan Hodge, is looking into to the incident personally to see if a disciplinary sanction should be issued. Since Beasley used his status as a lawyer to run the scam, he's almost certainly going to be disbarred. Forging a new career from the ground up probably won't be easy for someone who was heading up a law firm and had been a lawyer for well over a decade. The scam involved a large number of small businesses, mostly owned by the defendants. But one specific bank on the outside is also catching heat. Federal laws require banks to monitor customers' financial activity to look for anything suspicious. Because the transactions at the core of the whole scam went on right under their noses, Wells Fargo is also named in the class action lawsuit. Click to watch one of these next videos and let us know in the comments section what you think is the biggest scam that people fall for all the time.